Marie Antoinette, the last queen and the tragedy of extravagance. Who was Marie Antoinette? Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a historical tale full of drama, controversy, and tragedy. It's the story of Marie Antoinette, the last queen of France before the French Revolution. If you've ever heard the famous line, "Let them eat cake," then you've probably got an idea of who she is. But is that all there is to her story? Let's explore the life of Marie Antoinette together, from a hopeful Austrian princess to a queen despised by the world, and finally her dramatic end under the guillotine. Marie Antoinette isn't just a name in history books. She's a symbol of extravagance, inequality, and centuries-long misunderstandings. So, who was she really? A victim of her time, or a figure who helped push France into chaos? Stick with me as we uncover the truth. Royal childhood and a fateful marriage. Marie Antoinette was born on November 2nd, 1755, in Vienna, Austria, with the full name Maria Antonia Josepha Johanna. She was the youngest of 16 children born to Empress Maria Theresa, one of Europe's most powerful women, and Emperor Francis I. As a member of the prestigious House of Habsburg, Marie grew up surrounded by wealth and privilege. But her life wasn't exactly a fairy tale. Back then, royal marriages weren't about love. They were about politics. At just 14 years old, Marie was chosen to marry Louis Auguste, the heir to the French throne, who would later become King Louis XVI. This was part of her mother's grand plan to secure an alliance between Austria and France, two nations that had been bitter enemies for years. Imagine being a 14-year-old girl, leaving your family and homeland behind to move to a foreign country where everyone sees you as an outsider. The pressure must have been immense. On May 16th, 1770, Marie tied the knot with Louis at the Palace of Versailles, the ultimate symbol of luxury and power in France. But this marriage was rocky from the start. Louis, a year older than Marie, was shy, awkward, and completely inexperienced as a husband. Marie, on the other hand, was youthful, beautiful, and loved a good party. Their differences created a huge gap, and for the first 7 years of their marriage, they didn't even have children. A massive scandal for a queen at the time. Versailles, a world of glamour and gossip. In 1774, King Louis XV passed away, and Louis XVI took the throne. At just 19, Marie Antoinette became Queen of France. Versailles, where she lived, was a dazzling palace filled with extravagant parties, stunning dresses, and endless whispers. But beneath all that glitz, France was in serious trouble. Wars, debt, and natural disasters had left the country broke, and the people were starving while the court kept spending like there was no tomorrow. Marie Antoinette quickly became the center of attention and the target of criticism. She adored fashion, gambling, and hosting private parties at the Petit Trianon. A smaller palace she turned into her personal retreat. Her lavish dresses, towering hairstyles, and sparkling diamonds earned her the nickname Madame Deficit. Lady Deficit. People said she spent money like water, while the common folk couldn't even get a crumb of bread. But was that entirely fair? Some historians argue her extravagance was exaggerated. She wasn't the only one splurging at court, and her spending was a drop in the bucket compared to France's massive debts, mostly racked up from wars Louis XVI and his advisors supported. Still, her image was twisted by the tabloids of the day. She became the perfect scapegoat for a nation desperate to vent its anger. Let them eat cake. Fact or fiction? When you think of Marie Antoinette, you can't skip that famous quote, "Qu'il mange de la brioche," or in English, "Let them eat cake." It's supposed to show how out of touch she was, laughing off the people's hunger. But here's the twist. Did she actually say it? Historians agree there's no solid evidence Marie ever uttered those words. The phrase first popped up in Jean-Jacques Rousseau's Confessions, written before Marie even arrived in France. And it wasn't originally about her. But when the French Revolution kicked off, her enemies pinned it on her to smear her reputation. It became a powerful symbol of the gap between the royals and the people, even if it was likely just propaganda. In reality, Marie wasn't heartless. She did charity work, looked after orphans, and sometimes tried to live more simply at Petit Trianon. But to the public, those efforts were nothing compared to the extravagant queen they'd built up in their minds. The revolution explodes and the fall begins. By the late 1780s, France was a powder keg. The people were starving, taxes were sky high, and resentment toward the monarchy boiled over. On July 14, 1789, a mob stormed the Bastille prison, the spark that ignited the French Revolution. Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were blamed for every hardship, even though they weren't directly running the show. In October 1789, an angry crowd of women marched to Versailles, demanding bread and the Queen's attention. The royal family was forced to leave the palace and return to Paris, where they were kept under house arrest in the Tuileries Palace. For the first time, Marie faced the raw fury of the people. She wasn't the untouchable queen anymore. She was a prisoner in her own country. In 1791, Louis and Marie made a desperate bid to escape France in what's known as the Flight to Varennes. Disguised as commoners, they nearly made it to the border, but were caught. This move only fueled the public's rage, proving the royals were willing to abandon France in its hour of need. From that moment, their fate was all but sealed. Death by guillotine? On January 21st, 1793, Louis XVI was executed by guillotine. Marie Antoinette, now a widow, was locked up in the grim conciergerie prison. Separated from her children, her health crumbled, and her once famous hair turned white in just months. In October 1793, Marie faced trial before the Revolutionary Tribunal. She was accused of everything under the sun: treason, wasteful spending, even horrific lies like abusing her own son. The trial was a sham. The outcome was predetermined. On October 16, 1793, at age 37, Marie Antoinette walked to the guillotine in what's now Place de la Concorde. Her last words? An apology to the executioner for accidentally stepping on his foot. A final glimpse of her grace under pressure. Marie Antoinette in history's eyes. Marie's death didn't end her story. For over 200 years, she's remained a polarizing figure. To some, she's the poster child for monarchy's corruption, a selfish queen living it up while the people starved. To others, she's a tragic victim, swept up in a chaotic era she couldn't control. Today, Marie Antoinette is everywhere in pop culture. Movies, books, even music. Sofia Coppola's 2006 film with Kirsten Dunst painted her as a lost young woman, caught in a glittering world. But do we really know her? Or are we just seeing her through centuries of bias?